So here we are again, back in the studio. As you can see, there's still some chocolate left. Here's an even bigger shock. I've still got some hot cross buns. Well, I just got some more, to be honest, but we knew that would happen. Last week we celebrated the resurrection of Jesus. He'd only been self-isolating for 3 days, but we were so pleased to get him back. Today I want to look at the last chapter of John as it looks upon the time between his resurrection and ascension. I want to look at this because I think this was a very important and time-pressured part of his earthly story. There were many things he wanted to get sorted out before returning to heaven. My thought was, if we looked at what Jesus concentrated on with limited time available, we might see what was important to him then, and that should guide us in what is important to him and us now. In bullet point form, it goes like this. 1. Miraculous fish catch in verse 6. 2. Eat together in verse 12. 3. Reinstate Peter around verse 15. And then finally, item number 4, an intriguing last verse that says, Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. Interesting. So, he showed his power, he showed his relationship, he showed his compassion, and then he showed this, but we don't know what these things were. I do wonder about that. So let's follow up on the idea that Jesus did what was important. He showed his power. He showed it in an almost mundane, everyday kind of way. He sorted the fishing. This had been the occupation of some of the disciples, and they probably thought they might have to return to this way of life. But Jesus showed his power in his authority over their working life. He asked them to make small changes in their methods, put the net the other side, and he did the rest. You might prefer that he turns up in some enormous way, but actually, right now, perhaps what we need is a resurrected Saviour who will show his power in sorting out our everyday working life. He did it then. He can do it now. Perhaps he needs us to make those small changes in our methods. If that's what he's saying to you, then do it. He will do the rest. So he showed his power. Then he showed his relationship. He sat and ate. The most basic thing we as people do. Eat. He did that with these people. Maybe he was hungry and thought he might as well get the food in. But I think there's more to see here. He demonstrates his desire to be with these people and share their lives with them. He shows himself to be a servant leader. He did the cooking. He didn't delegate this job. It was not beneath him. Well, it was really. For heaven's sake, he's the Son of God. But he put his importance to one side to be with his people and to serve his people. Perhaps right now you can't go and cook breakfast for someone, but in what way is God calling you to care for others? It's okay if it's not really your thing, but Jesus himself showed us that we can provide for each other. So make that call. Put a note through your neighbour's door. Send out that email. Share your love of him with them. So he showed his power, he showed his relationship, and he showed his compassion. He took Peter to one side and he more than just forgave him for his earlier weaknesses. He showed his trust in Peter by asking him to be the one to feed my sheep. So who needs your forgiveness today? Perhaps nobody has run and left you when you were about to be arrested, but there are those who have hurt us all in different ways. Jesus teaches us in those few days between resurrection and ascension that forgiveness is right up there with the things we need to get on with. So do it. Just do it. It's not that hard. It doesn't even matter what it was that he, she, they did. Forgive and let the Lord take that nagging pain from you. So finally, John wraps up his gospel with a catch-all comment that Jesus did much more than was written. Well, yes, of course. I've said more words this month than have been quoted by Jesus in all of the Gospels. The writers have only had space and time to write down the things they saw as important, but it's what they saw as important to them. What I wonder about, all the things that are not written that I would have seen as important enough to get written, because the subject mattered to me more than to Matthew, Mark, Luke or John. This I do know. Jesus said and did things, written and unwritten, that matter to me. I also know he continued to work through people and situations today in ways that matter to me. I will dedicate my life to following him and finding out from him all the things that were not written in the gospel, but are being written in my heart. Will you too? Will you let him show his power through you? Will you let his relationship show through you? Will you let his compassion show through you? And will you help write more stories of his impact? Will you trust and obey? Which sort of sounds like a cue for a song.